Hello, my name is Eva Mae Nicholson. I'm going to talk about this particular piece. It's called Rhinestone 7. And it's very, very textured. And I started with kind of a pour, but then I started twirling the paint around, smushing it, and just doing different things with it. I had sponge painting that I used with this. And I even took a comb that you comb your hair with. And I made it into a 7 in the middle of the page, but I didn't realize it was a 7 until I finished with it. And I thought, oh my, it's a 7. So then I wanted to add some, like I said, some more texture. So I just kind of put some rhinestones on the canvas and just, you know, swirled it around and glued the rhinestones on the canvas. And so this is what it came out to be. And that's why I called it Rhinestone 7. It's one of my favorites, and it's one of my favorite numbers as well. 7 is my favorite number.
This is called The Soul of a Woman, and I created it through using textures of African fabric. A friend of mine blessed me with some embroidery African fabric. So I pretty much weaved it into the acrylics, and I call it a soul of a woman. The soul of a woman is because basically when I created this, I had no clue what it was going to be. I just wanted to kind of mesh it. I love the textures. And by the time I created it, I stood back and I looked at it, and I did not realize that the soul, which has a heart, a cross, which signifies the soul of a woman, and then it has a silhouette of the shape of a woman. Not intentional at all. So I said, you know what? The soul of a woman, we as women, we carry our spirits, we carry our love, and so thus, the soul of a woman.
Hi, I'm Mason Devine, and I am an artist, and this is one of the paintings I've created. I called it Lies Beyond because I didn't create this painting with any specific meaning in mind, but as I was going along, I kind of noticed how there's almost like a divide in which direction you're supposed to be looking. Like there's, you know, this graffiti right here that's pointing backwards, but your eyes are kind of drawn forwards and over the hill. And I kind of thought about how, you know, sometimes it's easier to look for anything that'll tell us to go back to what we're familiar with, what we're comfortable with. But, you know, if you never take the risk and go forward over the hill in life, you know, metaphorically, you never know what lies ahead for you, or what lies beyond, I guess, because that's what I named it. So I just thought that was an interesting dynamic because, you know, I do find myself at crossroads a lot in life, and I have to decide between moving on to something I don't know but maybe better for me, or going back to what I'm familiar and comfortable with, even if that's not necessarily what best suits me in my future. So I just thought that was, you know, an interesting piece. This painting I did this one a while ago. I wanted to almost break it into 3 sections because often I find myself painting the city a lot, I paint mountains a lot, and I paint the sky a lot. So I wanted to almost break that into 3 pieces and make that, or 3 separate sections, and make that almost, you know, like a combination of everything I do. And I wanted the city to be really vibrant and colorful to stand out from, you know, the darker, more dull mountains. And I really wanted the moon to shine through. And how I did this one was I put the moon last. I did the sky first. I put a bunch of colors on the canvas, and then I kind of swirled it around to create like the outward effect of the lighting. And then I painted the clouds over it, which you can kind of tell because you can, you know, there's a little bit of texture there, but I think that just adds to the piece overall. And I made sure, like, I had to create little fake logos too to make the city a little more convincing, and that was kind of fun to do. Especially that one right there with like the little blend, because I had to make I would put painter's tape around it and then paint the square in the middle and then peel it off. And so I think overall it came out pretty good. This piece was a little bit different because I wanted it to be more softer. Usually I'd go for like rougher edges. But how I did this one was I apply the paint directly to the canvas, and what I've been doing a lot lately is I get a spray bottle of water and I spray water onto my canvas, and then I kind of use that to help blend my colors a little smoother. So I kind of did that with the sky here to give it more of an authentic look. And I wanted to like mix pink and white towards the bottom to make it look like, you know, sunrise, because I named this piece Dawn. And then the water, what I did was I added a lot of color, and then I would go back and then add more and blend it together. And I kind of mixed some pink and magenta into the water too to make it look like it's reflecting off of the sky.
This piece is called Tango. And I call it Tango because it reminds me of two people dancing in the middle of the floor. And they're doing their own thing, they're just dancing, and they don't even realize that anyone else is in the room except them. They're really doing their tango and they're twirling each other around. And the reason I think it's that because it's in the middle where it looks like two people connecting. That's what it reminds me of. But of course, the abstract work is each individual's perception of what they see. And that's why I call this one Tango. The next piece is called Holy Hands. And Holy Hands is a spiritual piece, and to me. And it has 4 hands representing different things like the mind, body, spirit, and soul. Each hand is radiant and is reaching for the moon that's giving it energy that's kind of like a healing aspect to it. And it reminds me of when I was growing up, I used to go to church and they used to do what they call laying on hands on people, where it was a very spiritual experience. And people, felt good about their hands being laid on them, praying for them. And so that's why I call this one Holy Hands. The next piece is called Africa. And Africa is very vibrant, as you can see, lots of orange and browns and greens. It kind of is sort of a contribute to how that the elephants are being poached, in a sense of they're extinct. And we don't have very many elephants around anymore. But I think elephants are so beautiful. They're very resilient, they're strong, they're wise, and they're protective. So this is what this piece represents. And the last piece that I want to talk about is called Clothesline. This one here, it signifies childhood upbringing with the sense of doing laundry. And of course, laundry is different now, the way that we do it. We have washers and dryers. But back then, we used to wash clothes in our washing machine, but we would take them and we dry the sheets on the clothesline, and the wind would just blow through them, and you could smell the fresh detergent. And I remember my mom taking a sheet and she would just kind of toss it in the air, and that sheet would make a popping sound, and we just take the wooden clothespins and hang it on the clothesline. And so this piece is what that represents to me. It's called Clothesline. And it's a favorite of a lot of other people. They kind of like it, because they can relate to the fact that when they were growing up, they were doing laundry and hanging clothes on the lines.
This piece is called African Queen. I named her African Queen because I love African women, being an African woman as well. I feel that all women are queens. But this is a mixed collage, and I have to tell you a little bit about it. This is actually a necklace that my godfather gave me about 10 years ago. And I asked him, is it okay if I use it in my collage? He said, like, absolutely. So anyway, I try to bring real objects inside into my artwork, but African Queen also signifies not just strong women, but not just strong African women, but women in my life that have been really apparent and vital to who I am and who I am as a woman. So this is African Queen, but it resonates, I think, with all women because we are queens.
This piece I named Afternoon Streets, and I did this one a couple months ago too. This one I really wanted to focus on lighting and everything, so like on the telephone pole, on the mailbox, on the cactus, the other mailbox, and like even on the building too, you can see these different shadows and stuff. And even the windows have their own reflections of the sky around them, which I think looks cool because I made the sky this really vibrant orange color, and I didn't necessarily paint clouds, but there's still difference in the different colors I applied, and I thought that gave it a unique look. I didn't necessarily want it to look realistic because I don't feel like that's personally my style, but I did want it to have more of a realistic feel because at this point I was still trying to really develop, my art style and how I want to make things look in my pieces, how I approach different situations I come across when I go from sketch to draw or to painting. Because most of my pieces start off as a sketch, and so it doesn't always transition the way you expect it to, and so sometimes you have to get creative with the way you want to, address that. And so I think here I did a pretty good job of that. I think it actually came out better than the sketch, but I like to blame the sky for that.
This is one of my acrylic pours. I was inspired by my brother who lives in Hawaii. The volcanoes are beautiful, just the mysterious volcanoes, how the lava flows. For me, this one is a concept. I had a thought about what I was looking for, and this is what it came out, and I call it lava. What I do is I'll get the canvas, and I'll choose my colors, and sometimes I'll use cups. And I don't really measure. A lot of people do measure, and I don't. So I just and that's why I talked to my sister about, I use a lot of paint, and sometimes I'm wasteful. But, so what I do is I'll have my paints out, and I'll just put them in a cup and pour them on. And sometimes I'll just pour from the container itself. And so for this one, I knew that in my mind, I had a lot of gesso, and I liked the textures of the volcano ashes or the volcano rock. So I basically tried to do my gesso in different places, and then I poured the paint, different colors, and I swirled it around, and then I kind of just let it go. And you have to be in control of it yourself, because a little bit, because you can't control it. But once I did it, I let it set, and there it was. And the next day or the next few hours, I looked at it and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
This piece that I want to present right now is called Colored Glass. And colored glass is about when I was a little girl. I'd go to school and we'd walk through an alley, and there were lots of broken glass, not sharp pieces, but just colored glass on the ground. And I would look at it and I thought, wow, what beautiful, beautiful pieces. Blues and greens, because back then there were a lot of colored bottles. Now you don't find too many colored bottles around. And so I would just think about how it would be to pick up pieces of glass and just make a painting or a picture with it. So when I was painting this piece, I thought, wow, this is what this reminds me of. It reminds me of colored glass. And so that's why I decided to create this particular piece. And once again, it's what the viewer sees in the work, and it's not the product, it's the process that we go through when we're painting or doing artwork. It's all about the process.
So this is a picture of my grandmother, our grandmother, should I say, Cloeva Scott, and I wanted to pay homage to her and honor her in our art exhibit, since this is my mother's mother. So it's a black and white photo that was sent to me by a cousin, and I decided to embellish her and paint around her. She was, in my eyes, a royal woman, very, sophisticated in my young mind. But she was, and even to the purse that she has on, I actually put a pearl and put a beautiful crown, because for me, she signifies the strong woman in our lives. And if it wasn't for, of course, our grandmother, my mother wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here. So I just wanted to honor her as well. This is one of my favorite pieces that she's called, I usually name all my pieces she. This is Vision of Hope. I'll tell you a little story about Vision of Hope. About 2 years ago, I was trying to come up with some image of migration. We were studying migration. Actually, the theme of my Black History Month was migration. And so I wanted to come up with something that after all my research, I remember reading about women and families migrating from the south, going to the north for a better life for their families, just packing up and leaving. So the image in my mind came up. I painted a woman looking up to the sky, and for me, it makes me believe that as these women were traveling with their families, not knowing where they're going, with nothing sometimes, she's looking upwards saying, Lord, give me a hope. I need a vision of hope. And she had a vision of hope, not knowing exactly where it's going to lead her. So I use this as of today because we all need a vision of hope. Even with this COVID, with all the things that we're dealing with, this woman here still is a vision of hope in my mind, and I hope for everyone else. So it's basically acrylics with collage, earrings, found objects, and just the flowing of the journey. And so that's my vision of hope.
So with these two paintings, the idea kind of was just like the general essence of a person, you know, like how do I, you know, conceptualize such an abstract concept of, you know, who a person is on the inside. And I feel like I wanted to do that best with color, you know, and I don't feel like there's any sort of way I can really describe these paintings in a way that makes sense, because if I'm going to be honest, I don't even remember the whole process of creating these paintings, or these two in particular, but I still wanted the idea, like this one, the idea was like flow, you know, and just cores. And I feel like this painting was really, it came out really interesting because this almost looks like an eye, sort of, and like these are eyelashes, and I thought that was, you know, it's really different than anything else I've ever made. And this one too, what I did with this painting was I painted the background first, and I wanted it to look like really flowy, and I wanted it to be really vibrant and wanted to have lots of different colors in it. And then I wanted to create a contrast on top of it. So what I did was I created like almost like white cracks as if the painting's breaking through. And I really just wanted there to be like, you know, this is all, you know, organic and doesn't really have a set shape to it, but the cracks are really geometrical and solid and rigid. And I feel like there's a lot of ways you could interpret this painting in general, but I feel like it just came out at least visually interesting, if I can't find the words to describe the rest of it. But I think just the, you know, overall I feel like these paintings are really different than anything I've done, and I think that's, you know, it's good for me to go outside of what I'm familiar with or what I'm comfortable with in terms of painting, because that helps me grow too, not just everything else that I do too. And then this piece, what I do a lot in my paintings is I try to replicate a mood or a feeling or just the way I interpret the world in general. I want to try to, because I can't always communicate that through words. So sometimes painting helps me communicate that visually, you know? And so I really wanted to replicate how like the sky looks sometimes when it's rainy, and just the general fog and everything, because that's one of my favorite types of weather overall. And you know, I always thought like the type of blue the clouds can get sometimes is a really pretty color, and I've always wanted to recreate that. So this is me trying to just, you know, recreate the things I like to see in the world.